Okay, let the record reflect that the defendant is present along with counsel for the defendant, assistant state attorneys. Both sides ready to proceed?
Yes, sir. The state is ready to proceed.
Okay, and who will be the state's first witness?
Your Honor, the state's first witness will be Jeffrey Hopkins.
Okay. All right, let's return to jury. State recognizes the presence of the jury.
Yes.
And does the defense. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I hope you had a restful evening. Did you heed all of my previous admonitions? Okay. All right. Mr. Hopkins.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Mr. Hopkins, how old are you?
26.
Do you know Casey Anthony?
I do.
When did you first meet her?
Probably middle school.
Did you stay in touch from middle school up until 2008?
Through passing.
How would you characterize your relationship with Miss Anthony?
More or less acquaintances.
Weren't very good friends?
Not very good friends.
Did you ever work at Universal Studios?
I did.
When did you work at Universal Studios?
Approximately 2002.
How long did you work there for?
1 year.
Did you ever work there at the same time that Casey Anthony worked there?
I don't think so.
You don't recall ever seeing her there?
Never.
Did you ever introduce Casey Anthony to a woman by the name of Zenaida Gonzalez?
I did not.
Did you ever use Zenaida Gonzalez as a nanny?
No, sir.
Do you have any children?
No, sir.
Have you lived in the Orlando area consistently since 2002?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever lived in Jacksonville?
No, sir.
Have you ever lived in North Carolina?
No, sir.
Did you see Casey Anthony in the month of June of 2008?
No, sir.
July of 2008?
Yes, sir.
Where did you see her?
It was at the Waterford Lakes Ale House.
Do you recall what day that was?
It was the first Tuesday in that July 2008.
Does July 2nd ring a bell?
Yes, sir.
All right. Who did you go to the Ale House with?
A few friends of mine, Gabriel Flette and Corey Arnold.
Okay. And while you were there, you saw Casey Anthony?
Yes, sir.
Did you go there with her?
No, sir.
Were you planning on seeing her there?
No, sir.
Did you speak with her?
Yes, sir.
What was the nature of the conversation?
Hi, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Exchange numbers, and that was pretty much it.
Did you ever hear from her again after July 2nd of 2008?
I did, through text messages. They seemed to be mass text messages, I believe more than just myself got them, about going to a club called Fusion.
Did she ever tell you that Zenaida Gonzalez had taken her daughter?
No, sir.
Were you aware that she had a daughter?
Yes, sir.
Had you ever met her?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, sir. I don't believe I have any other questions.
Cross-examination.
May it please the court. Mr. George. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Mr. Hopkins.
Good morning.
Is your name Jeffrey Michael Hopkins?
No, sir.
Okay. You and Casey knew each other in middle school, right?
Correct.
Did Casey have a crush on you in middle school?
I'm not sure of that, sir.
Did you have one on her?
I can't say that for sure.
You can't say that because you don't want to, or you can't say it because you don't remember?
Well, not a crush, but she was an attractive young lady.
Okay. It would be fair to say the two of you had, I guess, puppy love eyes for each other or something along those lines.
Overrule at this point.
No, sir.
Just a mutual attraction of some sort.
Yes.
Okay. And you have been contacted by law enforcement immediately when this case came to light, did you not?
That is correct.
And you let law enforcement know that you don't have a child named Zachary.
That is correct.
And that you are not rich from a trust fund.
That is correct.
And that you did not have a girlfriend named Zenaida Gonzalez.
Correct.
And that you never introduced Zenaida Gonzalez to Casey.
No, sir.
And that you and Casey were not going to, that your son Zachary, his mother died in I guess, an accident or passed away quite early. You told him you didn't have any knowledge of that, right?
No, sir.
And you told them you weren't going to move in with Casey and Kaylee and your son Zachary, right?
No, sir.
Okay. And you told them all of these stories were just one great fiction. Did you not?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And it's not you.
It is not me.
Okay. Now, do you have any information as to what happened to Kaylee Anthony on June 16, 2008?
I do not.
You don't have any idea how she passed away?
I have no idea.
Thank you, sir.
Rita Rack?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hopkins, when did law enforcement first contact you?
I believe it was the night that they came to the Anthony home.
That would be in July of 2008?
Correct.
Did you speak with them at any other time?
I did.
Do you recall when?
Once at my house and once at the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Was this weeks later or months later?
I would say weeks later.
You were asked a question about Zenaida Gonzalez. Do you even know anyone named Zenaida Gonzalez?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else.
May the witness be excused.
Yes, sir. As far as the case is concerned, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. You may be excused, sir.
Thank you.
State may call in next witness.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did. Yes, sir.
Leonard Totora, Turtora.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. How are you employed?
I'm sorry, how am I employed?
Yes, sir.
Currently, I'm the assistant manager of loss prevention at Universal Orlando.
Okay. How long have you held that position?
Just over 5 years.
And what sort of job requirements are there for assistant manager in loss prevention?
To have a full understanding of the investigations department at Universal Orlando, to know the internal and external theft policies and procedures, anything to deal with external shoplifting, anything to do with the resort and the security operations behind that.
All right. Do you frequently have contact with law enforcement, particularly the Orange County Sheriff's Office, if there are investigations involving potential Universal Orlando employees?
Primarily, we deal with the Orlando Police Department as we're in the city. But
Universal Studios is in the city of Orlando?
Correct.
Okay.
And occasionally, Orange County will get involved, but primarily we deal with Orlando Police.
Okay. On July 16th of 2008, did you have occasion to come into contact with Detective Yuri Melich of the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
Detective Melich showed up at our security out in City Walk, and was asking some information on a potential or alleged employee. At that point, I was contacted and asked to assist him. He was directed towards my office, and he began to brief me on some information that he was looking for.
All right. Did that information include determination as to whether or not a woman by the name of Casey Marie Anthony was a current employee of Universal Studios Orlando?
He did.
Okay. Do you have access to various databases at Universal Studios that would be able to tell you the status of former employees, current employees, or perhaps whether or not somebody ever worked at Universal Studios?
I do.
Are those databases ones that you use in the normal course of the business that you've described?
Yes.
Were you able to utilize a database at Universal Studios Orlando to determine the employment status of Casey Marie Anthony?
I was.
And what did you find?
I found that at the time that I met with Detective Melich, she wasn't currently employed, but through our past database, I was able to determine that she was actually employed by a third party, not actually Universal Orlando.
What does that mean?
That it was it wasn't directed to a third party business that does property on our property, and that it's not owned and operated by Universal Orlando.
Does the database nevertheless maintain the names of individuals who are employed by third-party vendors?
It does.
Would that vendor have been some subsidiary of Kodak?
It was. It was called Color Vision.
Okay. Are those the people who take pictures of you when you come into the park and then want you to buy it?
That is correct.
Okay. Was she currently employed, according to the Universal Studios database, with this third-party vendor?
Not at the time, no.
Okay. Do you recall, or did the business records of Universal Studios reflect the last date of employment?
I believe it was May or April of 2006.
Were you also asked to determine whether or not other individuals were current or former employees of Universal Studios?
Yes, Detective Melich gave me 3 other names to check.
Was one of those Jeff Hopkins?
It was.
Did you determine whether or not there was a Jeffrey Hopkins who was ever employed at Universal Studios?
I did. I saw he was employed from late 2001 to early 2002.
Was one of those names Juliette Lewis?
It was.
Was there any reference to an individual by the name of Juliette Lewis in Universal Studios Orlando's database?
There was not.
How about an individual by the name of Zenaida Gonzalez?
I was given that name.
Was there any reference to an individual by the name of Zenaida Gonzalez as ever having been employed at Universal Studios Orlando, whether by the studios or through a third-party vendor?
There was not.
Were you ultimately asked to validate email addresses?
I was. Not at the time I met with Detective Melich, but later.
Later on.
Yeah.
All right. Were you able to determine whether or not any of the email addresses provided to you, specifically as it relates to a Cheryl Davis, was one that was valid at Universal Studios Orlando?
I could not.
Now, you said that you met with Detective Melich on July 16th of 2008
Correct.
at City Walk or somewhere else?
It was in my office, which is located in the parks.
Okay. At some point that day, did you have an opportunity to meet Casey Anthony?
I did.
How did that occur?
After we were unable to verify that she was currently employed, Detective Melich called her and placed her on speakerphone, asked her a series of questions. I couldn't confirm anything that she was saying to me. So he brought her, he had asked if it would be okay if a couple detectives could pick her up and bring her to Universal. I agreed. I assume she agreed as well.
Did you hear? You
I
said
did,
she was
actually,
on
I'm sorry.
speakerphone.
Yeah, I did hear that she agreed that 2 detectives could pick her up at her house and bring her to Universal. I received a call about 45 minutes later from Detective Melich that the two detectives had arrived. I met them outside of our security gate where the employees come through. And
Is this a location where you had directed Detective
It was.
Melich to have the other detectives come?
It was. And as we agreed previously, after I met them, Detective Melich introduced me to Miss Anthony, explained that I was an investigator with Universal and that I would be assisting them.
All right. Did you see them arrive at the security gate that you mentioned?
I did not see them pull into the parking lot. I met with them at their vehicle, and all of us proceeded to the security gate at the time.
Okay. From the location where they parked to this employee's security gate, how far is that? Walking
50
time.
feet. 50 feet, so seconds.
Okay. What happened at the security gate?
I had asked Miss Anthony if she was a current employee. She stated she was. I asked her if she had her ID on her. She stated she did not. I explained to the security officer who was working at the gate that we needed to get to her building where she worked, and he had asked her if she knew her employee. But I stated I didn't. She didn't have her ID on her. He asked her if she knew her employee number. She stated she did not. He asked her what department she worked in. She stated she worked in events. The officer asked her if it was for marketing or entertainment. She stated it was a little bit of both, which couldn't be true. We then tried to look her up by name. At that point, the officer kind of motioned me over to the computer that he was using to show me that the database showed she was not a current employee. I kind of gave him a head nod as I already knew this and asked him what the next steps would be. He stated we could call her supervisor. So he asked Miss Anthony what her supervisor's name was.
Did she give a name?
She did.
What name was given?
Thomas Manley.
Okay. Was an effort made at that point to contact this supervisor at Universal Studios?
The officer used our phone book to look up the name Manley. Could not find a record of that. Asked her what the spelling was. She verified that he was spelling it correctly and stated that he had no record of that name.
Okay.
At that point, I said I could bring her onto the property, provided her and the detective stayed with me in my custody.
Okay. So you go from the security gate to where?
We began to walk, fearing that we were going to go on a long expedition. I asked pretty directly where we were headed. She pointed to a building that I knew had nothing to do with any events department and stated we would go in there.
Okay.
At that point, when we walked inside, Detective Melich began to look around and asked if we were in the events building. At that point, Ms. Anthony looked at me, put her hands in her back pocket, and stated, "I don't work here."
Okay. At that point, did you arrange for the detectives who were with you and Ms. Anthony to go to a conference room at Universal Studios?
I did.
Did you stay in the conference room with them?
I did not. I showed them where it was, and then I went over to a break area.
Okay. How long were they in the conference room to your recollection?
I don't recall. Based on my statement, I wrote that it was anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes.
Did you see these individuals emerge at some point from the conference room?
On two occasions. The first occasion was shortly after they went in. Detective Melich came out, used his cell phone, and went back in. And then at the end, two detectives came out and sat next to me in this break area and began to make some phone calls.
Okay. Did you see Casey Anthony come out?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you remember her leaving Universal Studios property?
I do.
How did that occur?
At the end of when the
what someone else had intended.
I didn't ask if somebody else intended. I'm asking.
Objection overruled.
Go ahead, sir.
Did I believe it was a sham?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay. Well, were you pretending that Miss Anthony was an employee there when you knew she wasn't?
Was I pretending?
Yes.
No, sir.
You made it clear to the detectives that she wasn't,
Correct.
but yet two of them brought her there anyway. Yes.
Correct.
And contacted you, right?
Correct.
All letting Miss Anthony say that she was an employee there when you knew she wasn't, right?
I knew she wasn't. Correct.
You had verified it in the computer.
Correct.
You had programmed, right?
Correct.
You even knew the details that she was not only not an employee there, but had actually only previously been an employee of a third party,
Correct.
taking pictures.
Correct.
And that she wasn't even employed with them at that time
Correct.
and had not been for a couple of years.
Correct.
And when you first were in the presence of Miss Anthony, she was just calm and ordinary, wasn't she?
I don't recall her demeanor, no.
You don't recall her being upset, do you?
I don't recall her demeanor, no, sir.
Or crying?
I don't recall her demeanor, no, sir. She wasn't crying, I know that.
Pardon?
She was not crying
Yeah.
at the time.
Okay. So even though you knew she was an employee, Detective Melich knew she was an employee, the other two detectives with her also knew from your information, didn't they?
I don't know what the extent of the two other detectives, their knowledge. No, sir.
You by chance remember the names of those two other detectives?
It was Detective Allen and I believe Detective Wells.
Yes. Appling Wells and John Allen.
Okay.
They introduced themselves to you,
They did.
show you their credentials.
No, sir.
So even though you all knew she didn't work there, you still went with her to walk to the events building.
There is no events building, so.
Pardon?
There is no events building, so we.
Where it was supposed to be.
I'm sorry.
Where she claimed was the events building.
She never claimed that. We just started walking and she said we were going to go to this building, just pointed to an arbitrary building that was.
She pointed
within
to a building.
Correct.
Do you know how far it was from the gate to that building?
200 yards.
So it took a while doing that walk, didn't it?
I wouldn't say a while. I would say a couple minutes, a minute or two.
Whatever period of time it took, you, the detectives, everybody there knew that she didn't work there, but went along with the charade to let her pretend, didn't you?
I wouldn't say we let her pretend because I knew she didn't work there, so I wasn't acting.
So finally there came a point when you went into the building, you and the three detectives with her, yes?
Correct.
And started down a hallway
Correct.
looking for what she was calmly saying, my office is down here. Right?
No, sir. As soon as we walked in, she knew. I believe she knew that I knew she didn't work there at the time. And when I directly asked, where are we going?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
When I directly asked, where are we heading? She pointed to a building, and I believed at that time she knew.
And
that I
after
knew.
you got in the building
Yes, sir.
is when she finally turned around to the three detectives and you and said, I don't work here.
She was speaking directly to me.
Said, I don't work here.
Correct.
You already knew that.
Correct.
They all knew that.
Correct.
And then who asked for a room to question her?
I took it upon myself to get them a room.
In your presence, did any of these three detectives advise her of her Miranda warning rights?
Not in my presence, no.
And was she taken into a small conference room?
That's correct.
And when I say small, sir, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the dimensions of this room?
I don't know the dimensions off the top of my head.
1 10 by 10, 10 feet by 10 feet?
Again, I don't know the dimensions of the room.
Sir, was it as small as here being you right now? Or smaller?
Probably lengthwise.
So these three detectives went in there with the accused, Casey Anthony.
That's correct.
You did not go in the room with them.
I did not.
Do you know how long she was in that small room with these three detectives, sir?
Again, I don't recall, but in my statement I wrote it was between 30 and 45 minutes.
Might it have been even longer?
Again, I don't recall, but in my statement I wrote it was 30 to 45 minutes.
Do you have knowledge, sir, as to whether or not that proceeding in that room was tape recorded?
I do not.
You ever been apprised of that or given an opportunity to review it?
No, sir.
By the way, you were asked to check on the identity of somebody else. It's Thomas Manley.
Yes, sir.
Is that a real or imaginary person?
Imaginary.
Other than what you have just advised us of, sir, do you have anything else to do with this case?
No, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Any redirect?
Just a few questions. Mr. Tutora, based on Ms. Anthony's statement to you, she knew when she came to Universal Studios she didn't work there.
Correct.
Correct? And she knew when she was at the gate that she wasn't an employee, even though she made statements at that point that she was.
In her mind, Your Honor.
Based upon her statement.
Overruled.
Based upon her ultimate statement to you, where you described she put her hands in her back pocket and said, I don't work here. She knew when she came to the gate she didn't work there, didn't she?
Correct.
And as you walked the 200 yards from the gate to the events building, she knew that she was not an employee.
Correct.
She maintained this charade? Is that the word that was used?
Correct.
You were asked about these individuals who went into the room. Did they handcuff her prior to them going into a room?
No, ma'am.
Did they ask her if she would go into the room with them?
I don't recall any conversation that they had.
Right. Did she appear to resist going into the room in any way?
Not to my recollection. Again, I didn't watch them physically walk into the room.
Okay. When they emerged from the room, do you recall her demeanor?
I recall as they were walking off property, she had asked if they had looked in other states for found children. That was the only thing that I recall as they were leaving.
Okay. So even as they left, there was discussion between them about missing children.
Correct.
All right. That's all I have of the witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
May the witness be excused. Okay, sir, you may be excused.
Thank you.
State may call their next witness.
My name is Yuri Melish, Y-U-R-I-M-E-L-I-C-H.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective Melich.
Good morning.
You talked yesterday about dropping Ms. Anthony off at her residence at 6-something in the morning?
Yes.
Okay. From there, did you begin an investigation that involved your traveling to Universal Studios?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what time you may have arrived at Universal?
I want to say it was around 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning.
Okay. What was the purpose of your going to Universal at that point?
There were several reasons. During my interview with Miss Anthony earlier that morning, she mentioned that there were several outcry witnesses that had worked at Universal in the past. Since she didn't have telephone numbers or contact information for these people, logically the first place I would go is their employer to see if I can find employee records, get some information, perhaps a date of birth, and through that I can identify or use other resources to find these people and talk to them. She also mentioned that Zenaida was a part-time or seasonal employee for Universal Studios. So, of course, being the suspect in this case, I wanted to try and identify her, get her date of birth, more information on her, her family, where she lived. Furthermore, she said that she had lost a cell phone at her work and that she had an office at her work. So I wanted to see if I can get a copy of this report and maybe even later go to her office and see if we can try and locate this lost cell phone.
All right. Now, at this juncture, you had mentioned the word suspect in connection with Zenaida Gonzalez. Are you, at this point, investigating where Kaylee Marie Anthony could be?
Well, obviously I was trying to investigate or locate the suspect because Miss Anthony had said that the suspect had taken Kaylee Marie Anthony. So yes, I was trying to locate Kaylee Marie in trying to find the suspect, yes.
Through this Zenaida Gonzalez that
Yes.
Ms. Anthony had told you about the morning, a few hours earlier.
Correct.
Okay. Did you meet with Leonard Tutora at Universal Studios?
Yes.
While you were meeting with Mr. Tutora, did you make an effort to contact Ms. Anthony over the telephone?
I did.
Did you place her on speakerphone?
I did.
Where were you able to reach her on the phone? At her house or on a cell phone? Do you recall?
I believe I called her cell phone. If I'm correct, I recalled her cell phone, but I talked to her over the phone.
All right. So did she pick up on the first try?
I don't remember it going to voicemail, so yes, I talked to her. I can't recall if it was first try or not, but
Okay. What did you tell her on the phone?
I told her that I was planning on going to her place of employment, and I wanted to make sure I'd gotten some of the information correct.
Okay. Did you tell her you were there at Universal?
No, I did not.
So when you were attempting to determine whether or not the information that she gave you was correct, what do you tell her you're looking for?
I asked her to confirm her work number and her extension, and I recall the reason I had her on speakerphone was so Mr. Tutora could actually take that information as she gave it and look in his computer to see if it was correct or not. I recall asking who her boss's name was, and she gave a boss's name, and he checked the computer, and there was no such person in that department. There was someone with a similar first name, but the last name was not the same.
Okay. Well, the first name was Thomas, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Tom or Thomas. So once you have Ms. Anthony on the phone, she's giving you this information, you're getting simultaneous either confirmation or rejection from Mr. Tutora. Do you continue the conversation with Ms. Anthony?
We had the conversation, aside from asking the telephone number and her employer. I don't recall if at that time I asked if she'd be willing to show us her office or come to her office. I don't recall if I said that at that time.
Did you have one or more conversations with her over the phone?
I only recall one.
Okay. At some point during that conversation, do you make an inquiry of her as to whether or not she could come out to Universal Studios?
I believe I did, to the best of my recollection.
How did that transpire?
Simply asked if I needed her to come out, I guess. I don't remember the exact conversation, so I can't tell you what I said verbatim on the phone. I recall asking her questions about the phone number and her boss, but I don't recall a specific conversation about her coming out to Universal. Okay. Obviously she did, but...
Well, how did that happen?
Well, I recall talking to my sergeant, John Allen, at one point after I talked to Casey. And
Miss Anthony?
Sorry, Miss Anthony. And I recall asking my sergeant at the time if there was a way that he can go over to Miss Anthony's home and pick her up to bring her to Universal Studios if she'd be willing to come. And I recall that Sergeant Allen actually took another detective, Appy Wells, and picked up Miss Anthony about 12:30 or so and brought her to Universal Studios.
All right. Did you tell Miss Anthony that you would like her to come to Universal?
I believe I did, yes.
Okay. Did she agree to come?
To the best of my recollection, she did. She didn't. I don't recall her saying anything about, no, I don't want to go, I refuse to go, nothing like that.
All right. So you made some arrangements for her to come to Universal.
That's correct.
Okay. How long after your phone conversation does she arrive?
Probably within the hour.
Okay. Where do you first see her?
At the employees' entrance gate on the backside of Universal.
Is she with Sergeant Allen, as you described, in Appy Wells?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Do they have her in handcuffs?
No.
Do they have their hands on her in any fashion?
No.
How are they dressed?
Much the same way I am. Shirt, tie, badge, gun.
Okay. Did you hear them make any threats to her in any fashion to get out of their vehicle or to do any particular thing?
No.
So what was your first observation upon her arrival at Universal Studios?
Aside from them, I don't understand the question. Them walking up to the
What
gate.
happened?
They walked up to the gate. Since Casey said that she worked at Universal Studios and she's going through an employee entrance, we let Casey talk to we let Miss Anthony talk to the security guard. We watched as Miss Anthony approached the security guard, and we could overhear the conversation. And in short, she said she was an employee but didn't have her ID. The guard asked for her name. She gave her name. The guard told her, it doesn't show that you work here. Asked her some questions, asked her who she worked for. She gave the name of the boss that she said she worked for. The security guard didn't have that and said, I don't know who this guy is. And ultimately, the only way that she got into Universal was through Mr. Tutora signing her in. But that whole time she was saying, yes, I'm a Universal employee. Yes, I work here. I just don't have my ID. And she was very convincing.
And she was trying to convince them to let her in?
Yes.
From your observation?
Correct.
Okay. So you all got into Universal Studios because Mr. Tutora signs her in?
That's correct.
Okay. Where do you go from there?
Just inside the employee gate, we asked Casey, okay, take us to your office. So she started walking, and she was leading us to where she said she worked on Universal Studios.
Okay. So when you say leading, she's out in front by herself?
I don't recall if she was by herself or she was walking with someone, but she was leading us. She was directing us where to go. We didn't know where she was going to take us. She said she worked there, so we wanted to see where she would take us.
Okay. If I may show the witness what's been marked as HG for identification. Hold on, let me make sure all the unpublished is off. Okay, got it. Do you see what has been marked as HG for identification?
I do.
Okay, is this?
Judge, we would stipulate and have no problems with admitting this photograph into evidence.
Yes.
Your Honor, with that stipulation, I would move to introduce HG for identification into evidence.
It will be received in evidence as states numbered.
And permission to publish that during the testimony.
You may publish.
All right. Detective Melich, you recognize that?
I do.
What do you recognize it to be?
It's an aerial image or a satellite image of a part of Universal Studios to include the back gate or the employee entrance.
Okay. Is this something created by you to assist with your testimony?
I used the map. I didn't create the satellite image, but I used the satellite image and I put a path of travel. I created the path of travel based on my recollection of that day.
Okay, and you have an indicator on there of a beginning point. Where is that on property? How would you describe that area?
The employee parking lot.
Okay. And then as you have a telestrator too. If you can touch the screen and tell us the direction of travel from there.
We went from, I don't recall where they parked. Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, when we came out after the interview, Sergeant Allen was parked somewhere over here. So we went through the gate, or the security guard gate, which is this area here. As soon as we went into property, there's a little path. We went down the path, again being led by Miss Anthony, crossed the street and into this building here.
Okay. Were you talking with Miss Anthony as you walked?
I'm sure I was. I don't recall what we were talking about. It was small talk.
So what happens once you get into the building?
We walk into the building. She turns left, starts walking down this hallway, and about halfway down the hallway, she stops, turns, looks at us, and says, "I don't work here."
All right, if I may have HH for identification.
Stipulates the admission of this photograph.
All right, with the stipulation then, Your Honor, I would move HH for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
HH will be admitted in evidence as states numbered.
Oh, I'm sorry. Permission to publish.
You may publish.
Detective Melich, do you recognize 63 in evidence?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
It's the hallway to the building that Miss Anthony led us into.
All right. Did you come in these double doors to
Yes.
the left?
Yes.
Okay. And what happens when you walk in?
Walking in the double doors, we turned left, straight down the hallway, down the tile floor, and in the area where it becomes dark,
You can touch the screen.
right about this area is where she stops, turns around, and tells us she doesn't work there.
So what do you do next when she says that?
We asked Mr. Tutora if there's a room we could use to talk to her, because now obviously we would want to know why she would bring us to a place she didn't work. And Mr. Tutora found a small room in that same building that we could use since we were in the building, and he allowed us to use it so we can further question Miss Anthony.
All right. Did you ask her at that point if she would speak with you?
I can't recall our conversation going into the room, but yeah, I believe I would have said something along the lines of, "Okay, we need to talk about this," but I don't remember verbatim what I said.
Did she agree to speak with you?
Yes, she did.
If I may have HI for identification.
To the admission of this photograph as well.
Thank you.
All right, Your Honor, with that stipulation, we would move HI for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
HI will be received in evidence as states numbered.
And permission to publish.
You may publish.
Detective Melich, what do you recognize 64 in evidence to be?
It's the room that we conducted the interview with Miss Anthony while at Universal Studios.
Okay. There are items. Was that picture taken that day?
No, ma'am.
Okay. It was taken at some later point, obviously.
Yes.
Was the room predominantly set up the same way to your recollection?
Obviously, the size of the room is the same, but the placement of the furniture, I remember the furniture being placed differently in the room.
How?
The couch along the wall, I recall it being along this back wall. This chair was just inside the doorway. to the right of the door.
Okay. So once you go into the room, who's with you?
Sergeant Allen and Detective Appling Wells.
And Ms. Anthony?
And Miss Anthony, yes, of course.
Okay. Who was where, to your recollection?
Miss Anthony sat here. I sat to her right. And I can't recall if it was Sergeant Allen in the chair and Appling Wells on the arm of the chair, but they were both in that area at the chair.
All right. And the chair is obviously closer to the door. There's a switch of position here.
Right, there's a chair.
Okay. So Appy Wells and John Allen closer to the door. You and Ms. Anthony near the window on the couch.
Yes.
Did you have a tape recorder with you?
I did.
Did you tape your conversation with Ms. Anthony in its entirety?
Yes, aside from the small talk coming into the room, yes.
Okay. At that point, was Ms. Anthony under arrest?
No.
Did you tell her that she was arrested?
No.
Did you tell her she couldn't go anywhere if she wanted to?
No.
Did she say that she didn't want to stay or that she wanted to leave?
No.
Did you advise her, or was it obvious because of the placement that the conversation that you were going to have was to be recorded?
I recall it wasn't surreptitiously recorded. I remember taking the recorder out and actually placing it, if I'm not mistaken, between her and I on the couch that we were sitting on.
You may.
Have you had the opportunity to review the audio and the transcript generated from the audio?
Yes.
Okay. Have you determined that the audio is a fair and accurate recording of the conversation between you, Miss Anthony, and the other detectives with you?
Yes.
The transcript, have you determined that the transcript is also an accurate version of the recording?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce MS for identification into evidence and provide the transcript, which is MT, to the court reporter.
What says the defense besides renewed objections?
Subject to, we would just renew our previous motions and objections, Judge.
Okay. Previous motions and objections will be overruled. They will be received in evidence as...
Detective Melich, how long is this statement?
Just over an hour.
You getting ready to publish it?
I am.
Okay. Members of the jury is going to be for an hour, so that will take us close to 11 o'clock. This may be a good time to take your break before we start. So we will take a recess to 10 minutes past the hour of 10. Yeah, just a second. Okay, let the record reflect that the defendant is present along with counsel for the defendant, Assistant State Attorney. Okay, Ms. Burdick.
I just wanted to know if it's all right with the court if I sat during the publication so I don't have to stand at the podium the whole time.
Now you can sit if you want to.
Okay. I'll come sit with you, and you'll really object.
It's always good to have a little levity. Okay, let's return to jury. Okay, state recognized presence of jury and the defense. All right, Ms. Burdick, you may proceed to publish the exhibit.
Date right now is July 16th, 2008. It's about 13:20 hours. We're at Universal Studios. I'm here with Sergeant Allen. I'm here with Detective Happy Wells. I'm also here with Casey Anthony. And Casey, we talked earlier this morning, and we're working a case looking for your daughter Kaylee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We came here to Universal Studios. We're sitting in a little conference room. Obviously the door isn't locked. We just closed it so we could have a little bit of privacy and talk to you. And a couple more questions came up I need to ask you about. Remember how I opened this whole thing in the morning?
Yeah.
By saying that, we need to get the complete truth and the snowball effect and how it goes? Okay. We're about halfway down that hill, 3/4 down that hill, and it's a pretty big snowball, which means that there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, just for a certainty, that everything you've told me so far has been a lie. I can tell you with a certainty, and let me explain why. Since I left you this morning, mm-hmm. I've gone to every address that you've told me. I've looked up every name. I've talked to every person that you wanted me to talk to or tried to. Mm-hmm. I've reached out. I've talked to your ex-boyfriend. I've talked to Amy. I've talked to Tony. I came over here. I've already talked to all the employees. Mm-hmm. I found out all these names that you're giving me are people that either never worked here or have been fired here for a long time ago. Okay, so where we are right now is in a position that doesn't look very good for you, mm-hmm. and this is going to be your escape hatch, so to speak. Okay, this is going to be the point where you stop all the lies and you stop all the fibs and you tell us exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. I'm just being straight with you, because obviously I know and you know that everything you told me is a lie. Correct?
Not everything that I told you.
Okay. Pretty much everything that you've told me, including where Kaylee is right now.
That I don't know where she is.
Sure you do. And here's
absolutely do not know where she is.
Let me explain something. Together, a combined experience in this room, we all have about 30 years of doing this. Mm-hmm. Okay, both myself and Sergeant John Allen worked for the Homicide Division for several years. We've dealt with several people. We've conducted thousands of interviews between the three of us. Happy's got 20 years, so just between the three of us, we've got several years. And I can tell you for a certainty that right now, looking at you, I know that everything that you've told me is a lie, including the fact that your child was last seen about a month ago, and that you don't know where she is. See, I'm very confident, just by having talked to you this short period of time, that you know where she is.
I don't.
You do. And here's the thing: we need to get past that, because we can sit here and go back and forth all day long about I don't, I do, I don't, I do. It's pretty obvious that with everything that you've told us, nothing has been truth. You know where she is. Now, my question to you is this. We need to find Kaylee. I understand that right now, Kaylee may not be in very good shape. You understand what I'm saying? She may not be the way or the way your family last remembers her. We need to find out from you where Kaylee is. This right now is this is going so far downhill, and this has become such a mess that we need to end it. It's very simple. We just need to end it.
I agree with you. I have no clue where she is.
Sure you do.
If I knew in any sense where she was, this wouldn't have happened at all. It wouldn't have happened whatsoever.
This stuff about Zanny, the caretaker or the nanny taking care of him,
it's the truth.
It's not the truth, because it went to the apartment complex. There's no person that ever lived there by that name. The apartment's been vacant since March. That same apartment. Now, the apartment that you pointed out to me, the 2-story apartment, that's an old folks' home. It's right across the street from your ex-boyfriend's house, who you never mentioned. And you said you wrote the address down because it was across the street. That's a lie, because I've already talked to him, and we've already been by the house, and we've already looked at everything we need to look at over there. Mm-hmm. Everything you told us is a lie. Well, now there's a couple of ways that this goes. Right now, we can, I've never met you before, so I can look at you in one of a couple of ways. Mm-hmm. I can look at you as a person who's scared, who's concerned, and who's kind of afraid of what's going to happen because of something bad that happened before. Or we can look at you as cold, callous, and a monster who doesn't care, who's just trying to get away with something something bad that happened and trying to cover it up. Mm-hmm. It's going to be one of those two options. Now, from what I've already talked to you, okay, you seem like a very bright young lady. You don't seem like someone who has no education. All right. Now, what we have to do is we have to determine which way is this going to go. Are you a person who's scared about the consequences of what happened? Or are you scared about something that happened? Or are you really this cold, callous person who doesn't care about what happened? It's one of these two options.
I'm scared that I don't know where my daughter is. I would not have put my entire family.
Hold on. I want to ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Like you said, you seem like a pretty bright person, okay? You're here willingly, right? You're here because you're here to try to help, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Your whole reason for talking to us is to try to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's forced you to talk to us, right?
No.
You want us to. You're here because you called. You want us to help find your daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now let me ask you something. I want you to put yourself in somebody else. Put yourself in my shoes for a minute, okay? Since you talked to him this morning in an attempt to try to help find your daughter, you've given him bad addresses, okay? You drove me all the way out here. We walked from the gate back here on the way to your office, right? Okay? To an office that you don't have. We got all the way to the building, into the hallway out here before you finally says, well, I really don't have an office here. But up till then, we were walking to your office, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, does any of this make sense to you?
I understand how all of that sounds.
No. Here's the problem with that, though. Okay? You can carry the weight of this around for a long time. It's not going to get any easier, okay? What he's trying to tell you right now, I'm going to tell you, in the amount of time that I've done this, almost 30 years now, okay? I've learned this. People make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. All the three of us have all made some mistakes in our lives. We've done some things we're not proud of, okay? But then there comes a point in time, you either own up to it, you say you're sorry, you try to get past it, or you lie about it, and you bury it, and you lie about it, you bury it, and you lie about it, and you bury it, and it just never, ever, 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 ever goes away, okay? That's it, okay? Now, I want you to stop and think about what's going on here, okay? At this point, we can explain that you're afraid, that you were ashamed of maybe something bad that happened, you were afraid maybe it would happen. But now that we're giving you this opportunity and you continue to lie, then what happens at some point, it becomes, there's no excuse, there's no reason, there's no reasonable person to look at us and go, wow, this is a person who really just doesn't care. Okay? I mean, think about what we've done so far, okay? You say you call us because you want our help, you want us to find your daughter, okay? I'm calling you and I'm asking you for help. I'm asking you to help me find my child that's been gone now for a month, okay? And to help me find the child, what I've done to this point is I've given you a bunch of bad addresses to go look at, addresses that don't exist, okay? Then I take you to a place where I tell you that I work, okay? And I walk you past the security gate, okay, on the way to my office that I don't have, okay? You start to get the picture? Or do you understand where we're headed here?
I understand.
Okay? Now, you're by hiding this, by burying this, okay, you are not going to get yourself to a better place, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to cause everybody else around you to suffer, okay? And then at some point, this is going to come out. It always does. It always comes out, okay? Now, your best bet is to try to put this behind you as quickly as you can. Go to your parents and tell them, some horrible accident, whatever happened. Get it out in the open now, okay? Instead of letting them worry, okay? How old are you?
22.
At some point, okay, you're going to want to mend things with your family, okay? You let this drag out for another 3 days, another week, another 2 weeks, okay? You make us solve this some other way, and we'll solve it. We always do, okay? Okay? I mean, there's no point in coming forward to say, oh my God, this is what really happened once we figured it out, okay? You ever had anybody do anything wrong with you? Have anybody hurt you in any way, okay? Let me ask you a question. When somebody's hurt you in the past and they've come to you and said, I'm sorry, okay? I'm from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry for what happened. Do you forgive them?
Yeah.
What about somebody that does something to you and then lies? You forgive them?
It's a lot harder to sometimes.
A lot harder to? Tell me the last time somebody hurt you over and over and let you suffer for a period of time and then lied about it, and then you caught them, okay? Well, once you caught them, that apology didn't mean a hell of a lot, did it?
No.
Okay? All right? Right now, your best bet is to just get it out in the open, whatever happened, and tell us now, okay? So we can kind of start getting past this. Try to help you explain, okay? Because keep in mind, you're talking to people. There's nothing you're going to tell any of the three of us that's going to surprise us, okay? I had to sit down with mothers who rolled over in their babies accidentally. I've had to sit down with mothers whose kids have drowned in swimming pools. I've had to sit down with mothers who had boyfriends who beat their kids to death. Who felt horrible about what happened, and I've had to go to them and help them try to explain to their families, okay? And then I've also had to deal with people who have done horrible, unspeakable things to children, and then lied about it, and lied about it, and lied about it, okay? And I'll bet you somewhere in there I've probably dealt with somebody who maybe made a mistake, but continued to lie about it. Maybe they weren't such a bad person, but maybe the whole world didn't see it that way. Maybe their family didn't see it that way because they kept lying about it. And then when it finally came, and then months down the road, or days down the road, when they finally decided to come forward, okay, people were past it. You told me that you lied to me for the last time. I don't listen to what you have to say. Don't talk to me anymore, okay? We've had to we've had to go into court and try to help people explain situations. And we've had to go into court at times and say, the person just never said. They kept lying to us and kept lying to us and lying to us and lying to us, okay? We're all human beings, okay? You tell me. I mean, you're a smart person. Figure it out, okay? So far, the only thing that we can say for sure at this point, okay, is that you have lied to him about all these things. You brought us here, okay? All right? Now, I want you to look at this from an outsider's perspective. Somebody somewhere down the road we have to decide, how this all plays out. What would you do? How would you see that person? How would you see that person differently? You might see somebody, maybe a young mother who made a mistake and, maybe initially was afraid to tell the truth, but at some point came forward and said, horrible thing happened. I'm sorry. I feel terrible about it, but I have to tell you.
The horrible thing that happened, and this is the honest to God's truth, of everything that I've said, I do not know where she is. The last person that I saw her with is Zenaida. She's the last person that I've seen my daughter with.
See, here's the problem. I think Sergeant Allen's trying to get to this, is that we know that's not the truth. We know. Listen.
Is.
We know that that's not true. That can't be the truth, because if that were the truth, everything you would have told us would have been on the money. The addresses you would have taken us would have been on the money. Everything else would have matched. If you had told us the truth, we wouldn't be here at Universal Studios, at a place that you've been fired since 2006, with you trying to explain to us, you have an office and all that stuff. We wouldn't be here. So we know, and this is the part we need to get past, we already know that you're not telling us the truth, that you know what happened to Kaylee and you know where Kaylee is. But here's what we're trying to get by, is that you fall into one of two categories, and I'm sure he explained it and I explained it, is that if this is something, an accident that happened, and no matter how you think people are going to look at you, they're going to look at you a lot worse if you continue showing that you're callous or not caring, and that you just show complete dispassion and disregard for human life. Mm-hmm. Or they can look at you as someone that, I can understand. I'm a young mother, or she's a young mother, first child, something horrible happened. She's thinking, oh my God, my life isn't going good right now. I already know my life is struggling. People don't see me in that great of a light. I know I got problems at home, and I've got problems with friends, I know I got problems at work or lack of work. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, something bad happens to my child, and people are going to think, I'm just a devil. See, there's a difference between this person who makes a mistake and says, listen, I'm sorry, this is the reason I lied to you, this is the reason I was scared, compared to the person who might sit here and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference there. And I can tell you now that everything you've told me is a lie. Everything that you've told me this morning, from Zenny, from the addresses, from Universal, from all these people that you've talked to, including people that you never told me who their names, and I found them and talked to them. Mm-hmm. Everything that you've told me this morning is a lie. Every single thing. There's one of two options right now. You need to tell me the truth, and we can work with that. Mm-hmm. Or if you continue down this path and continue lying, I can tell you that when this snowball gets to the bottom of the hill, the only person who's going to get hurt in it is you.
That's not true. A lot of people around you get hurt.
Your parents. A lot of people are hurting right now. And
you know what? One person put a stop to that.
I've been trying.
You haven't been trying.
Wait a minute. Okay. Let's go through this again, okay? Stop me at the part that I say it's not true, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to go through this, and I want you to stop me at the part that isn't the truth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You take your daughter and you drop her off on June the 9th, okay, at a babysitter's house, okay? Now, this is a babysitter that lives at this apartment, okay, that's been vacant.
I dropped her off at that apartment,
Okay.
at those stairs.
Oh, you just walked her, you dropped her off?
Walked her to the stairs. That's where I've dropped her off a bunch of other times, besides just that day.
Okay, and when you dropped her off, who took her at that point?
Zanny did. She took her at
So
that
you
point.
left her in Zanny's care on June the 9th. Okay? So far that's right.
Yes.
Okay? You first call the police about this when your mother and father, okay, actually you don't call the police to report your daughter, Nelson. What happens is your parents find their car that's been towed from Amscott, and your parents ask you where your daughter is, and you tell your daughter or your parents that you haven't seen your daughter for over a month, right? That's true, okay? So I haven't told anything. So far I haven't said anything that's not true, okay? That's true, okay? That's true. That sounds reasonable to you, correct? Okay? When the police do get involved, okay, when your parents involve the police in an attempt to locate your child because they're worried, the first thing you do, okay, is you lie to the detective whose job it is to try to find your daughter and get her back into safe hands, okay? You give him all kinds of bad addresses to look at, right? Okay, so far I'm on track, correct? Okay, then you bring us out to Universal where you say you work in an office to try to help find stuff that will help us find your daughter. I'm on track so far, okay? And we get here, we walk all the way down the hall to where you tell us, you don't really work here. You don't have an office here, okay? So far everything I've said is true, correct? Okay? Now, that sounds reasonable to you, okay? I'm telling you this story. I'm saying to you, listen, I dropped my child off 5 weeks ago at the babysitter's house. She's just disappeared. No, I didn't call the police and tell them. Matter of fact, I made some attempts to locate her on my own, but I didn't really get the police involved or do anything like that, okay? And, oh, by the way, I got my mom and dad's car towed, and then when my parents asked me what happened to my daughter, I told them I hadn't seen her in 5 weeks. So they called the police, okay? Now, what I did is I lied to the police when they got there, okay? I told them a whole bunch of crap that isn't true, gave them a bunch of bad addresses to go look at where I know that my daughter's not there. And I did all this to try to help find my daughter. Makes sense to you, right? That makes sense to you? It makes sense to you that I'm trying to help the police find my daughter by giving them a bunch of bad addresses? That makes sense to you?
That's what I said, yes.
No, I'm asking you. That makes sense to you.
That part of it, no.
My attempt to help him find my child, okay, what I've done to try to help him find my child is I've given him a whole bunch of addresses to go to that are bad addresses. That's what I did to help him try to find my child. That makes sense to you?
I took him to the last place that I've seen my daughter. Besides that, I took them to other places that I've
seen. When you brought us here to go look in your office, that was supposed to help us how? Because everything we're doing here is about finding your daughter, okay? So I want you, okay, to explain to me how coming here to go to an office that you don't have, I want you to tell me how that's helping us find your daughter. Because every bit of focus right now, okay, you got 3 people here to try to help you. That's what we're here to try to help you find your daughter, okay? All right? And we came here to look for clues, to look for evidence that will help us find your daughter, okay? Now I want you to tell me how that's helping find your daughter. We're here to come search your office for anything that will help us, okay? And we're here because you brought us here, right? Now I want you to tell me how that's helping us find your daughter.
It's not.
But everything we're doing is to find your daughter. That's the most important thing to look to you right now, right?
Kaylee's been up here. Maybe we can talk to security to see if she's come through the front. I know she's come to the park. She's gone to Disney. She's been at SeaWorld. She's been other places.
Let's go back to
It's
we're
a
here.
backwards way of
looking. And why do you think it's backwards? It's backwards because you haven't been truthful with us, okay?
Because I've been reaching.
You've been reaching, huh?
I've been reaching to try to figure out a place where she actually is.
So, once again, okay, because you never did answer my question, you're reaching and helping find her by bringing us here to this office that you don't have is helping us find her how? Because what you're doing right now is you're doing everything you can to find your daughter. You have 3 experienced detectives right now whose sole focus is here to help you find your daughter, okay? And we're here because you brought us here, correct?
Absolutely.
You directed us here because we're going to your office to find evidence. It'll help us find her, okay? Now that we're here, I want you to tell me how that's helping. What is it we're doing here? What's helping us right now, okay? We're coming to an office that doesn't exist.
It's not helping.
So why did you do it?
Honestly, I wanted to come up and try to talk to security. Maybe pass around a picture of Kaylee. I legitimately have not seen my daughter in 5 weeks. I didn't let anything happen to her, except I trusted her with somebody. Somebody that had been taking care of her, that had been taking good care of her. Someone that she was comfortable with, that I was comfortable with.
What about Jeff? You said Jeff worked here until about 2 months ago?
No, he hasn't worked here for quite a while.
10 months? How long?
It's been at least 10 months.
Okay. He got fired in 2002. He hasn't been an employee here since 2002. Now, what about the girl?
Juliet?
Yeah, what about her?
She left 2 months ago. That's exactly what she had told me.
Juliet Lewis never worked at Universal Studios.
I'm sorry. Is the baby's daddy actually dead?
It's a good question. What are we going to find?
Would your...
I still have a copy of the obituary at home.
I mean, you've told us so many untruths right now. I'm confused.
Yes.
Would your parents be upset if you had given the baby back to the daddy and to take back for his grandparents, for his parents to take care of?
He passed away last year. We hadn't even talked much before that.
So let me ask you this. Is the obituary in your office?
No. I think I have a copy of the obituary at home. There's no office, so there's no anything anywhere. We've made that clear already.
Right.
So if I have a copy of it still, it would be on my computer at home. I'm pretty sure I kept that. I don't think that's something I would have gotten rid of.
Zanny has never worked here. How do you explain that?
She has an ID. She has an ID with her name on it.
Just like you have an ID?
I do have an ID somewhere at my house. Both of my parents have seen it. Both of my parents know that I've worked here. I used to have an office.
Now, just like you have an office?
No, I don't have an office now.
Okay.
And we're here to go to what? To do what? We're here because what?
Try and put things together.
No, we're here in this building because we put a lot more together than I think you realize we put together. My question to you is, we're in this office because we got here how? To do what? Our purpose in coming here was to do what? Go where?
I guess there wasn't a purpose. There wasn't a purpose whatsoever to come up here.
So we're wasting time, valuable time, that ought to be spent looking for your daughter.
I'm trying to think of places where I know she's been.
You're not answering my question. Do you want us to help?
Yes,
you want to help us find your daughter?
I do want you to
Well, then you need to help. Then a good starting point would be to answer the questions, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If I say to you, we're here because, and then you just ignore that, like as if I never asked it, and go off in some other direction, is that answering the question?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's go through this again. We're here because. We got here how? To do what?
Because I lied. Because I brought you up here. And honestly, I was reaching for
No, stop right there. I want you to tell me how lying to us is going to help us find your daughter.
It's not going to.
Huh?
It's not going to.
Well, then if the main thing you want to do is find your daughter, and you don't think lying to us is going to help us find her, why would you do that?
Because I'm scared, and I know I'm running out of options. It's been a month.
What are you scared of?
I'm scared of not seeing my daughter ever again.
Okay, if you're scared of not seeing your daughter again, okay, I want you to tell me how lying to us is going to solve that problem and help find your daughter quicker. Because if that's what you want, okay, obviously you're doing things to help us find your daughter, right? And I want you to tell me how lying to us is getting to that end. How is lying to us helping find your daughter faster?
It isn't.
Then why would you do that?
But saying I don't know and telling you that I just dropped her off and that was the last time that I've seen her, even starting with that, everybody else is like, well, and what happened after that? That can't just be it.
You remember the phone call you were telling us about?
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yes.
Did you actually talk? What day was it you talked to her?
Yesterday.
You remember what time of day?
Around noon. It was from a private number.
Okay. And what did she tell you? What did your daughter say to you?
She said, hi, Mommy.
And that's it?
And she started telling me a story, talking to me about her shoes and books. And
it's important that you tell me. I mean, maybe there's something in what she said that can help us figure out where she is. What did she say?
I tried to ask her where she was, and she just kept talking about the book that she's been reading. We have videos of her reading the story, and she's telling me the story.
So she seemed happy, and she's happy, and
fine.
She's fine, she's happy.
Perfectly fine. There was nothing in the background.
Telling you about a book, telling you seen no sign of any type of stress at all?
Not at all.
Great, that's wonderful. Let me ask you a question. Your daughter hasn't seen you in over a month, and she's not.
She was excited. She was excited, to talk to me. But at the same time, it's crazy that she didn't get upset when she talked to me, which it had been my mom.
Is that another thing that makes sense to you?
She never gets upset when she talks to me, whether I haven't seen her for an entire day or if I had to work late at night and I didn't see her almost an entire day until the next
time. The last time somebody took her and you didn't see her for 5 weeks was when?
Never.
Okay. Now, you haven't seen her in 5 weeks. She's not seen you in 5 weeks.
No.
Okay? She's been with this woman or somebody for 5 weeks. Hasn't been to her own home, hasn't seen her mother in 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. That didn't upset her. She was fine. She's talking about the book. I mean, is all that stuff you're saying true,
She's
right?
always been like that, though. I don't understand how.
Okay, but I'm getting back. Let's get back to you say this has never happened before. Mm-hmm. She's never not seen you for 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. But now after 5 weeks of not seeing her mother, mm-hmm. not talking to her mother, okay? She finally talks to her mother for 5 weeks. You ask her where she is. You begin asking her these questions, and she just wants to talk about the book. She's happy. She's not worried. Doesn't seem upset.
She's always like that. You can even ask my mom. She's the same.
Okay, let me go back to when was the last time you didn't see her for 5 weeks? When was the last time something like this happened where she was gone and you didn't see her for 5 weeks? The last time this happened was when?
Never.
Okay, so this is the first time, okay?
This is the first time I've been away from her for more than a day.
Okay. The first time you've ever been away from her for more than a day, and she wasn't the least bit upset.
No.
When you talked to her on the phone.
She wasn't the least bit upset when I talked to her.
She went on about, she know I miss you, Mommy, none of that. She talked about, like you said, she talked about the book and all that stuff, right? That's it?
And when I asked her to give the phone to another adult, to somebody else, she was fine. She was willing to do it, but the phone hung up. She doesn't hang up phones. I know.
And that's the phone she called you on, your cell phone?
Yes.
Can I see that real quick? What are you using?
Now, if this is the first time she's ever been gone away from you for more than a day, I'm a parent too. I would have been just beside myself.
I have been.
I would have called the police immediately, and that's the part that I just don't understand. We've got so many resources out there that we could help on day one.
You didn't know what to do.
When I went to pick up Kaylee and she wasn't there, initially my thought is that they went out to do something for a little bit. Maybe I just missed a phone call. Maybe I didn't get the call or the text message. Maybe something fell through the crack. It's happened before.
But now after that, right, I understand all that, okay? I want you to focus on what we're doing here, okay? Mm-hmm. All right? Because I want to make sure we get this right. After having not seen your daughter for 5 or heard from or not knowing your daughter was for 5 weeks, she calls you on the phone. You have a conversation with her where she talks about the books and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you ask her to speak to an adult, and then she hangs up. Or the phone hangs up, okay? Correct?
She can't.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Okay. You have this conversation with her after not seeing or hearing from her for 5 weeks. The phone call's terminated. You don't get a chance to talk to an adult, okay? Mm-hmm. The very next thing you do after that is what? Call the police, because now something really strange has happened, so you must have called the police right after that. Did you call the city police, or do you remember who you called? Which police agency did you call yesterday?
I didn't call anybody at noon after I got that phone call. I sat down.
You didn't think that was odd? You didn't think this?
I thought it was extremely odd.
But not odd enough to call the police and try to get help.
Let me throw something in if you don't mind.
Sure.
Rick is at the office, and Mick's finishing up the interview, and that was actually Mick calling me. You know Ricardo, right? Obviously, your ex-boyfriend. We brought him down to the office, and he's been talking to a couple of our detectives down there. And he was able to help us because he's telling us something obviously completely different than what you're telling us. And I was just able to tell him that he pulled the surveillance camera from the video across the street at that old folks' home that you drove me by. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get it enhanced to see if we could actually get some good detail on pictures and faces. But Ricardo was saying that you spent the night with him on the 9th and left on the 10th. And this is being corroborated right now, which again shows that you're continuously lying about the 9th being the day that
I
Danny
stayed
picked
over
him up.
at his house on the 9th of this month, not of last month. I was not at his place the 9th of that month.
So you stayed at your ex-boyfriend's house the 9th of this month, when you're staying at your other boyfriend's house, Tony, the rest of the month?
He'd been out of town, so I was staying over at another friend's place while he was gone. I wasn't staying at his apartment. I was staying with Amy and Ricardo and JP. JP and Ricardo own the house.
So why didn't you tell us you were staying there? We drove right by the house this morning, didn't we, when we went to the, okay, and you're putting it at this old folks home, which is another lie, right? Because Annie never lived there. Am I correct? Okay, why were you pointing at this old folks home and saying Zanny lived there at one point when she didn't?
Because she had gone there before. I had seen her there.
She went to the old folks home?
Yes.
But you never dropped your kid off to her at an old folks home. You never went into the old folks home and went to an apartment with her.
No.
Yet across the street from this old folks home, right there on Glenwood, is where Ricardo lives, with Amy and JP, all of whom are at our station talking to our detectives right now. So obviously, you know, we're not stupid, okay? And what you're doing right now is you're treating us like we're stupid, and which I take that, you know, to be a personal insult. I can't speak for them. Here's where it comes down to. None of us are sitting here believing what you're saying, because everything that's coming out of your mouth is a lie. Everything. And unless we start getting the truth, we're going to announce two possibilities with Kaylee. Either you gave Kaylee to someone and you don't want anyone to find out because you think you're a bad mom, or something happened to Kaylee and Kaylee's buried somewhere or in a trash can somewhere, and you had something to do with it. Either way right now, it's not a very pretty picture to be painting. Either way right now, with everything that you're telling us, you're painting yourself as a very bad person. Your family's going to suffer for this. Your friends are going to suffer for this. And remember what I told you about all these people coming out? They're going to crucify you for this because of all the lies that you've been telling us. We need to stop that right now. Everything you told us is a lie. You're looking me in the eyes. You're looking at everything you told us is a lie. Every single thing. And you can't keep sitting here and telling us the same thing and getting constantly over and over and over again, we're disproving everything that you're telling us. You're telling us that you've lied to us. You're telling us you're giving us misinformation. Everything you're telling us. Okay? It needs to end.
The truthful thing is that I have not seen my daughter. The last time that I saw her was on the 9th of June.
And what happened to Kaylee?
I don't know.
Sure you do.
I don't know.
Something happened to Kaylee. We're not going to discuss whether the last time you saw her. I'm guessing something bad happened to her some time ago and you haven't seen her. So that part is true if you say you haven't seen her because she's somewhere else right now.
She's either someone else.
No, she's either in a dumpster right now. She's buried somewhere. She's out there somewhere, and her rotten body is starting to decompose because of what you're telling us. And here's the problem. The longer this goes, the worse it's going to be for everyone. Everyone. The worse it's going to be for everyone. Right now, everything you've told us, we've locked you into a lie. Every single thing that you've told us has been a lie. We're proving all that. Now, right now, it's going to be one of two things. Either we find Kaylee alive, which is going to help you out extremely by telling us the truth, or we find Kaylee not alive, which if you start telling us the truth, might still paint you in a better picture. But here's where it needs to end. Here's where the truth needs to come out, okay? No more lies, no more bull coming out of your mouth. We've been very respectful. We're taking our time and talking to you. But we're tired of the lies. No more lies. What happened to Kaylee?
I don't know.
You do know. What happened to Kaylee?
I don't know where she is. That is the God's honest truth.
Where was she the last time that you put her somewhere? Where was she?
The last time I saw her was on those steps at that apartment that I took you to this morning. The same apartment that I took the other officers to last night.
But you didn't give her to anyone. You didn't give her to anyone while you were there. See, we're pulling. No, listen to me. We're even pulling surveillance video from an apartment complex, and they have to keep this by law for several days, okay? And we're not seeing you over there. We're not seeing you there at all that day. Do you think that we're stupid and we're not going to do all this stuff? Okay, we're not seeing you there. So now, if you're not there and you're not being seen there, and somebody's already saying that you're not there, and everything else you've told us is a lie, that's telling me. Remember we had those two people that we were talking about, the person who had an accident or made a bad decision, and a person who's just a cold-blooded, callous monster. That's telling me that you are the second person, this cold-blooded, callous monster who doesn't care and doesn't want to help because she's afraid that something so heinous happened that everyone's going to look at her and say, she's a monster, she deserves to go away, she deserves to never see the light of day, this bad thing should happen to her. I don't want to believe that right now, but you're giving me no choice. You understand? You're giving me no choice. This is going to be the opportunity that you have right now. No matter how heinous you think that what happened was to Kaylee, this is your opportunity to tell us. This is going to be your only opportunity to tell us. Because what's going to happen, we're going to find out. There's not going to be a question, we're going to find out. Okay? We've got so many resources on this right now, just like I told you would happen, that what we're trying to do is prove your story, but everything that we've done is disproving your story. Every single thing. Everything you've told us, we've shown you have lied about it. Casey has lied about it, and we're looking for your child. We got to throw these lies out, okay? All these lies are out. We know that everything you told us is a lie. Tell us what happened to Kaylee. Tell us what happened to Kaylee.
I dropped off Kaylee. And that's the last time that I've seen her. I dropped her off.
Where did you drop her off?
I dropped her off at that apartment.
No, you didn't.
That's exactly where I dropped her off.
And who'd you drop her off to?
With Zenaida.
No, you didn't.
She's the last person.
No. That's not true.
Did Zenaida give you any money that day?
No. I would not have sold my daughter. If I wanted to really just get rid of her, I would have left her with my parents and I would have left. I would have moved out. I would have given my mom custody.
What about the baby's daddy's parents? Would you have left them with them too?
I haven't talked to them since we were probably 6 or 7 years old, since we were little kids. That was probably the last time I saw or talked to them. No, I do not. I would not have let anything happen to my daughter except I made the mistake of trusting another person with her. That's it.
No, stop. You've made a lot more mistakes by that, because everything that you've told us, every single thing, from the point that you opened your mouth to the police officer this morning to right now, everything has been a lie. We're sitting at Universal Studios because of a lie. We've got all these other people in the station right now talking to us because of a lie. We've got all these other apartment buildings that we've got people that had to go check on because of a lie. Okay? We need to stop this lie. Your mother has called me countless times today. Okay? And that's why my phone keeps going off. Countless times, because your mother knows, your father knows, everyone around you knows that you have lied completely and absolutely from the get-go. Everyone knows. Why you're not coming out with it and why you're not telling us the truth, no one has an answer to. The only person that has an answer to that is you. And this is what we're trying to implore upon you. You need to tell us the truth about what happened to Kaylee. It's not that she was with someone and you didn't call. That's not the truth.
It is the truth.
That's not the truth. You need to tell. No, it's not the truth. See, we can't get past that unless you go ahead and tell us the truth.
There's nothing to get past because that is the truth. If there was anything else,
let's get past this. Let's get past how we got to Universal Studios. Let's get past why you talked to your daughter yesterday on the phone, having no idea where she's at and having not seen her for 5 weeks, and you didn't call anybody. Did you just think that one day she's just going to show up at your house?
No, I sat around yesterday trying to figure out what to do. I'm glad that I ended up seeing my mom, that all of that stuff happened. It happened for a reason. Because
you're glad you saw your mom. Let me ask you this. You could have saw your mom 5 weeks ago and said, Mom, I don't know where. You could have called your mom 5 weeks ago.
I was
what
scared.
has happened?
I saw my mom's reaction right off the bat, and it would have been the same from the get-go.
Well, so you're more afraid. So wait a minute. So you're more afraid of your mom's reaction than you are if you ever see your daughter again?
No, I'm absolutely petrified. Absolutely petrified. I know my mom will never forgive me. I'm never going to forgive myself. Because there's that chance that I might not see Kaylee again, and I don't want to think about
Well,
that.
let me ask you, how, by lying to us and sending us all these wild goose chases, hold on a minute, okay? I want you to tell me, okay, this is is it that there's some other thing more important in your life right now that maybe you just weren't really focused on what you were saying when you told us, so you kind of just accidentally told us you had an office here and we needed to be here because we might find stuff that would help, or did you lie to us purposely, or did you purposely mislead us? Which of those two is it?
I purposely misled.
Okay, so you purposely misled us. This was all in an attempt to help find your daughter, right? That makes sense to you, correct?
Again, in a backwards sort of way, yes.
Backwards sort
I'm
of way.
coming back to places that are familiar to me, that I know are familiar to her. Familiar situations that maybe would help. She's almost 3.
She's almost 3. What do you think, she's going to take a cab here? I mean,
I know
how do you think she's going to get here?
Because she's with someone else. If I could find her,
She's
if I
with
could
someone
track
else.
her down, this wouldn't be happening.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's put this together to where it makes sense, okay? She's with someone else, who's hid her from you for 5 weeks.
Yes.
Who let her call you on the phone yesterday, but then hung up. But you brought us here today because she might be here.
She could be anywhere.
Well, that's true, but why here? Why would let me ask you this, okay? Why would a person who has hid your daughter from you for 5 weeks, okay, bring her to the building that you used to work at? I mean, did you think you'd walk in here, she'd be sitting in the lobby, or? Okay, well, you brought us here to find her, right? Because you thought maybe in some weird sort of, I think what you said, a backwards way, that we find her here, that this would help. So I'm asking you.
Maybe she's been here within the last 5 weeks. Maybe they have something from up front, her coming through the turnstiles. I don't know.
So you think that this person who's hid her from you for 5 weeks, okay, that had her call you on the phone yesterday and tell you about this book she was reading, then hung up, would bring her to Universal Studios, and in this office in particular?
Not in this office. Coming to this
office. You brought us. You didn't take us to the turnstiles, did you? You brought us here, right?
You're right.
Okay. Now, when you told him about these other places that were wrong earlier today, that was also an attempt to help us find her, right?
These are other places that I've gone to and either seen Kaylee or I know that her nanny has been to.
And you were completely truthful with them about all
Yes.
of them.
I was completely truthful about those places that we've been to. I've been to those steps. That's where I've dropped.
No, I'm not talking about the steps. Okay, what about these other?
I'm talking about the other places. The other houses, I know.
The old folks' home?
Not the old folks' home.
Oh, so that was not really all the way true.
I know Zanny has been to the old folks' home.
Yeah, you pointed out the third floor window, and you said, "Well, that's what's her name's bedroom, and Zanny's bedroom is right below, is on the other side." That's what you told me. So that was a lie.
That was a lie.
And that was going to help find her how? Telling a line about that bedroom and where Zanny's bedroom is. That was going to help find her how? Huh?
It's not helping.
Well, then why would you do it? Because that's what we're here for, right? Find her.
I don't know what else to do anymore. If I knew where she was, if something would have happened, I would have admitted that a long time ago.
Do you believe thinking up more lies to tell us will help us?
Is your daughter in a better place?
No, she's not.
Are you worried about her?
I'm absolutely petrified. If she was with her family right now, she'd be in the best place. She's not. She's with someone that I absolutely do not trust, and that I'm absolutely scared that
you don't trust yet was babysitting your daughter for a year.
I don't trust her now because of what happened.
What point did you stop trusting her?
The moment that her phone was cut off and I couldn't get in contact with my daughter.
So you thought then, man, something ain't right.
Something's wrong.
And when you started thinking that something was wrong, which police agency did you call first? Us or the city police, or who did you call first? Who did you go to for help first to help try to find her?
No one.
Oh, no one. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad we got that straightened out.
I can't think of anything else that I can say that's going to convince you on how to do the right thing.
Let me talk to you outside about the surveillance station. Maybe I have to sit here with her for a little bit.
I'm going to leave that on if you want to turn it off on yourself.
You want some water or something?
No, I'm fine.
No, you good?
My one goal is, regardless of how it happened, like I said, I don't care. I will lie, I will steal, I'll do whatever I can to find my daughter. I put that in my statement, and I mean that with all of my heart.
I know, but we don't want you to lie because we work off of truth.
I know that.
And we want to find your daughter as much as you do. And I don't think you're a monster or anything like that. I think you might have some pressures in your life. Who exerts the most pressure on you? Like my parents used to do me.
My mom does. Absolutely.
Does she not think you care for your daughter good enough, or? It's rough being your single mom.
Living at home with my parents.
Gotta be rough. You'll never live up to your mother's expectations, right?
At least not right now.
Right.
But that in no way means that I would ever do anything or let any harm come to that child. She's the one thing in this world that I love more than anything.
And I understand that, and I believe it. I see the tears in your eyes. Okay. My concern is I know from my years of experience, I know what young adults and young moms and dads can do when parents exert too much pressure on them. They don't live up to their standards. They don't. So, not that you would hurt your child, but you might, because if your parent just constantly talks down on you, makes you feel like crap, you're not good enough.
It's not constant. I brought that on myself. The stuff that she says, the thing that she said, she's been right about everything.
What kind of things did she say?
She told me that I took advantage of her, and she's right, because I had for a very long time.
How did you take advantage of her?
By using credit cards. When I had my own money, I still used some of her money. I went and bought material things for nothing.
Right.
Whether it was things for myself, went out to eat,
right.
Spent a little bit of time with friends, or went and took Kaylee shopping. For whatever reason, I was extremely selfish.
Right.
I was extremely selfish for a few years, quite a few years.
What about, I don't know anything about this. Like I told you before, I was just sitting at my desk and he said, hey, come on. Something about a car at Amscott.
My car ran out of gas. I was driving actually to different places. My car, yes.
Okay.
Car that I bought from my brother 3 years ago.
Okay.
Sucks because I ran out of gas. My gas gauge is obviously reading wrong. The sensor could be wrong.
Right.
It showed I had half a tank of gas and it was empty.
When did it run out of gas? But before or after your baby was missing?
I was definitely after.
Yeah.
I was definitely after.
And it ran out of gas in the parking lot of that check cashing store?
No, it was right at the corner of Goldenrod and 50. As you can turn, you get in that merging lane where Sam's is and the Amscott.
Right.
As you're going to get on to Goldenrod from 50, that's where my car stalled, right there. So I had to get out. You guys helped me push it into that parking lot.
Okay.
And I left 2 notes on the car, even saying I was going to come back and put gas in it.
Why is your mother saying that's her car, or is she? Is that what I heard?
It's still in my parents' name. It was my brother's car. He ended up, that was the car they bought my brother in high school.
Okay, so
he bought the car, he paid off the car,
and he sold it to you?
He sold it to me, yes.
But not officially with the title transfer?
My parents kept the title, whether for insurance purposes or whatever else. They still kept it in their name.
Oh, okay. So the fact that it was at the check cashing place is just coincidental because you ran out of gas.
Because I ran out of gas.
It's not like you went there to cash a check.
No, I didn't go there to cash a check. No, I didn't go into the store.
Right.
I wasn't abandoning my car.
Right.
It just happened circumstantially. I ran out of gas.
Right.
I had to call my boyfriend Tony to come and pick me up.
Wow. If you were in our shoes, what could we do to help you find your child?
I don't know.
What more can we do? Do you have a computer at home?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever send, what's the nanny's name?
Zenaida.
Did you ever send her any emails? Or
Her
did she
email accounts bounced back. I've tried twice. I tried twice this morning. She had email.
Even when y'all were in good times, would she send emails back and forth?
On occasion, we would talk online, not usually through email.
So we might be able to track her.
If I check my logs, we could probably find her through instant messaging. Even.
What would be great is if we could have our forensic computer guy take your computer with your permission and search it, and he can probably track her by her AOL or whatever account, and maybe see, because she's going to set up another account somewhere wherever she goes.
Yeah. She's going to set up
Would that be something you'd be willing to do?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I know that I have documentation on my computer somewhere. I have to.
Well, he can find it. What he does, he makes a copy of what's on your computer, so you don't lose anything on your computer.
That way you can just pull it.
And then he can search through it. And maybe there's some clues there as far as where this lady has gotten off to. And when she was watching your baby, for the year and a half?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Was she always in that same building?
She'd been at a house over in Andover Lakes for a while. That was one of the main places.
Was it her house or was it the one she was sharing?
No, it was a friend's house.
So it probably wasn't in her name?
No, it was not.
Is that one of the addresses Yuri had?
No.
Do you know that address?
I do not know the address.
Andover Lakes, where's that?
Off of Dean and Crayford.
Okay. That's out by, there's a McDonald's out that way?
Yeah. That's the newer
Do you remember how to get to that house? So we could get the address, maybe do a title search, or? But she was probably just renting a room, or?
I think she was just renting a room there for a while. She had a couple of the roommates. I know the house wasn't in any of their names. I think they were just running through.
Did you know any of those roommates?
I have names. I have 2 names for them, but nothing.
Have you given them to Yuri?
Yes.
Okay. What were those names?
Raquel Farrell and Jennifer Rosa.
Okay. You had any contact with them?
No.
Have any way of getting a hold of them, cell phone?
I never really talked to them much anyway. I think I probably saw them maybe a handful of times.
Right.
Their schedules were completely opposite of mine. They were never really anybody that I met besides just in passing. Even with the boyfriend that Zenaida had last year, I saw him maybe twice.
Right.
They only dated a couple months. It was never anything serious. She never had him around Kaylee or the other children she had babysat, so it was never an uncomfortable situation. So this is so heart-wrenching because there was never a sign, never a single sign that this was going to happen.
Right. Do you know where she was from? With a name like Zoraida or whatever?
Zenaida.
Zenaida?
She's mixed. She's Puerto Rican and her father's black. She's from New York. From what I've been told, that's where she was born. She lived in Miami. She went to U of F. And
you said you went to Colonial High School. Did you go to college afterwards?
Valencia.
Valencia? How many years at Valencia?
About a year and a half. I got my event planning certificate.
Yeah. Oh, and that's when you got hired on here at...
Well, I got that outside of all of this. I just wanted to do event planning, period. And working occasional events even before actually coming to the event department, part-time or as a seasonal employee. It was just something I always wanted to do anyway.
Right. So. When you were growing up, you take any medicines or anything?
No.
Your baby take any medicines? Didn't she need any medicine?
Not at all.
She's good health.
She's had one cold and it lasted 2 days her entire life.
Yeah. Wow.
She's been extremely healthy.
Pediatrician. Who's your baby's pediatrician?
Dr. Silva.
Did these chairs aren't very comfortable. It gets lean way back.
Exactly. I'm not comfortable.
I feel like I'm leaning way back. Did the nanny ever take baby to the doctor?
The only people that were on the list was myself and both of my parents. And my dad had come with me to a couple of visits. My mom, I think, came to one. It was usually just Kaylee and I.
Favorite places to go? I guess Universal was one of them.
Well, as a theatrical thing, of course, but she liked Jay Blanchard Park, going to Lake Underhill and walking around the lake.
Whereabouts in the park did she like the best?
The playgrounds. She liked to just attempt to run around Lake Underhill. She liked to go and walk the big trail at Jay Blanchard Park.
That's a big trail.
She loved that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we just finished walking that trail. That's where the jogger was killed, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty park.
My mom didn't want me going out there to run for that reason.
Yeah.
She didn't even want me running on the outside of our neighborhood around Chickasaw for the longest time because of that.
I'm trying to think, when you pull into the park, is the playground off to the right if you're looking at the creek or the river?
Playgrounds.
Which one did she play at?
She's played at both of them, but usually the bigger one that's down towards where the Y is.
Right. That's the one she liked the most?
Yeah. Because there's more things to climb on, and for her to run around, there's usually a lot more little kids.
Yeah.
So, and there's swings.
When was the last time she was there?
The last time I know that she was there was the end of May. I took her in April a couple times. I've taken her a few times myself this year. The last time that I know that she went with someone other than myself was the end of May.
The end of May. And you last saw her June the 9th?
Monday.
Do you remember what y'all did on June the 8th? I can't think of what I did, but anything significant?
I think I might have been at Tony's. I think my mom took Kaylee up to see her parents in Mount Dora. She either took her up there that Saturday or that Sunday. It's my boyfriend's apartment.
Oh, okay. Mount Dora.
It's just north of Apopka.
Yeah. So that was like a day visit?
For my parents or for my mom, yeah. When my mom goes up there, even just by herself or with my dad, or if I go up there with her, it's usually just...
Your mom will go, that's your current boyfriend, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
So your mom will go there and she
No, my
likes
mom
him?
will go up to Mount Dora to see her parents.
Oh, okay. And your boyfriend just happens to live with her too. They're not.
No, he lives off of University.
Oh. Okay, I got you. So your baby went up there with your mom to see her parents.
See her great grandparents.
Yeah. How old are they?
Wow, my grandfather's, I think, 88, maybe.
Wow.
And my grandmother's probably 82, 83.
Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm an interview, Meg. That's my partner. He's going on a cruise to Bahamas, I think.
Nice.
Was that 3 day, 4 night, or
Usually.
4 day, 3 night, or something like that? That'd be nice. I guess, but I don't like boats. So, man, I just don't know everything that was asked of you, and I just don't know. You're our biggest help. You're going to be our biggest help in solving this.
I have nothing to go off of. That's the problem. I have perspective ideas of maybe where she could go, but at the same time, she could have gone back up to New York. She could have gone up to Jacksonville, where we have a friend. Could have gone down to Miami, where her mom and her sister live now. She could have gone anywhere.
Did she have any children?
No.
And we're talking about the babysitter, right? She didn't have any children? Could she have children? Is it something that she could have done?
I'm pretty sure that she could. That was never anything that came up, but I mean,
Did she ever, when you look back, did she ever make any funny, oh, like I love this child, you know, I wish you were mine, or anything like that? Or?
Never that I had witnessed or anybody else had ever told me. She used to just say how much she loved Kaylee and that she was such a good kid. And, you know, she was very, very proud of how she was being raised.
Right.
It was always good praise, but more of things that I'd heard from other friends. Nothing that sounded out of the ordinary, that it was ever strange or weird.
Right.
But then this just happened. She was nonchalant with me the morning of. Everything was perfectly fine.
And when you would call, like you would drop baby off in the morning or for the day, or was it because you had to go to work and she was watching? Mm-hmm. Would you call during the day? Call her up during the day?
I would always call and check on Kaylee or send a text message, or if I was online, just to make sure that everything was okay, or she would occasionally call me. Just
Can you
to
get online here at work? Can you send text messages from work?
I usually just use my phone.
Oh, okay.
I usually use my computer instant message from, you know, anywhere else where I have access.
Well, once again, I mean, that phone, I'm not an electronic geek, but I mean, the phone might have some valuable clues in there that can help us try to track down maybe
the
that.
bad thing is it only saves 20 calls at a time. Thing that I send. That's why. And text messages, it only saves the messages that I receive. It doesn't show anything that I send. That's why I pulled up a list of stuff for them.
Is that a Boost phone?
No, it's a Nokia. It's an AT&T phone. It's probably one of the cheapest, crappiest, simplest phones.
But the phone company, your service will have your telephones itemized for everything you pay,
everything,
right?
but
Incoming and outgoing, right?
Incoming and outgoing. The thing is,
do you have those itemized bills for?
Mm-hmm. I printed off the ones for July.
Did you give them to Yuri?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We did last night. Actually, I put them on a zip drive form. I gave him my zip drive that has pictures. Okay. And it has 2 different Word documents. One that has my text messages, when they were sent to what number, and ones that I had received. It didn't show the actual message itself, but it at least showed text message sent at this time to such and such number.
Right.
Same thing with the phone list. I just need to go back on the Singular website and find the other months.
Right.
Because I know she's had at least 3 different phone numbers in the last almost 4 years that I've met her. Mm-hmm. And I know that she was on 2 different phone plans.
And she lived in 2 different places since, did you know of?
She's lived in
since she's been watching your child?
No, she's lived just in Orlando since I've met her. But she had just
in the Andover Lakes. Was she watching your baby there?
Yeah.
And then in the whatever this other place is, or
there was another apartment that she had been in probably right about the time that I met her. Mm-hmm. It's Alafaya Club Apartments.
Does Yuri know all that? Mm-hmm. Alafaya Club Apartment. So
She'd only lived there for a few months. I think Kaylee probably was only there maybe once or twice.
Did she live in the apartment that you dropped her off at the steps? Was that one of the ones she lived in, or was that?
That was one of the places where we had met up a couple different times. I actually have a couple friends that live in that complex. So does she.
Okay.
A good friend of mine from high school still lives there. He has a one-bedroom apartment
Do you know
right around the corner.
Do you know who her friends were in there, where they lived, or names, or anything
I
like
do
that?
not. She used to talk about people all the time, but would never use specific names or really go into any detail about anything. And again, it never seemed weird. Some people are just very particular about giving out details or specific details about other people. So I understood all of that, but looking back at stuff now, the privacy, the way she was a little bit changing phones, and it didn't seem right whatsoever.
Right.
So looking back at any place that I know that she had ever gone to, or that again would seem familiar for me, that maybe I've gone to meet her, to drop off Kaylee or to pick up Kaylee for whatever reason. We'd find neutral places sometimes, or I'd go and pick her up at a grocery store if that's where they were, to try to make it a little bit easier.
If we found a nanny today and we found your baby, what's the next biggest hurdle for you in your life as far as maybe explaining something to somebody, or what's the next biggest concern? I know your major concern now is finding your baby.
Honestly, that's all I care about at this point, and I'll take that necessary step with whatever.
Who would that be? I mean, who's going to be the next hurdle in your life as far as trying to explain that, no, I'm not a neglectful mother, I'm not, is it going to be your mom?
No, it's going to be saying that and proving that to myself every day. My mom flat out told me yesterday she will never be able to forgive me, and I even told her I'm never going to be able to forgive myself. Every day I've been beating myself up about this. Every single day.
Right.
Not knowing where to go, what to do, running in circles, literally. Because it's all I can do at this point.
Right.
Even if I would have had my car in perfect condition, under perfect conditions, it wouldn't have mattered. Where would I have gone? Just driven around for nothing? That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I just, I would hope this would never happen to you again, but I think if it's ever happened again,
I would never let this happen again.
The very first phone call should be to the police.
Absolutely be to the police.
Because we have so many resources.
I wouldn't hesitate to talk to my parents this time if something happened. I mean, I learned the biggest lesson from all this. I made the greatest mistake that I ever could have made as a parent, and I even, told Yuri that this morning, and he said he couldn't disagree.
Right.
You all right?
No, I'm just going to stand up, stretch my leg. Well, I know you've been in here a long time. Appreciate you talking to us and whatnot.
I'm sorry I've given you guys the runaround.
We're not trying to be big scary guys. We're just trying we're just trying to make sure we get accurate information so we have something to work off of.
I understand that. I just wish I honestly had more things to help with. We've talked about going through my computer, maybe trying to find past conversations through Instant Messenger or through emails, something.
Okay.
I'll offer up my computer in a heartbeat. Just like with my phone logs and everything else, anything that could possibly help. That's why we've set up websites and have been making phone calls and trying to get a hold of people. I had such a limited number of people that I was actually trusting at that point, thinking maybe they could help, maybe they'd have some insight. I didn't want to involve a bunch of people that maybe didn't know the situation. Biggest mistake was not calling you guys right off the bat. I understand all of that. It's the biggest slap in the face, and I did that to myself. But the worst of all, I've done this to my daughter by allowing her to still be with someone else.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. By failing to notify somebody, right? I mean, I'm glad you acknowledged that. But by failing to notify somebody, you put your daughter at greater risk.
Even bigger risk.
You put your daughter in terrible danger by just letting this drag out for 5 weeks and not telling anybody. That's you're right. I'm not going to argue with you there.
No.
Okay. You want to head back to the office?
Yeah.
Get outside. I want to bring this Zenaida up on the. I'm going to put that name in David and see what we get. Better take a look, make sure we're.
Both of my parents were even saying to try to figure out other names if she went by something else.
Let me just go ahead because this is still running. I noticed it. Raise your right hand for me, just like this morning. You swear everything you told me is the truth now about the lies and everything else? Okay.
Detective Melich, the last individual talking to her for a lengthy period of time, who was that?
Detective Appling Wells.
Okay. And then the other voice on there that we heard that was not yours, who was that?
Sergeant John Allen.
While you were at Universal and conducting that interview, are other detectives with the Orange County Sheriff's Office following up on things?
Yes, I believe so at the time somewhere.
Okay. You were talking during the interview about a surveillance video from the Sawgrass Apartments. Is there or was there a surveillance video that was available from Sawgrass Apartments?
No, there was no video.
Did the Orange County Sheriff's Office speak with Amanda Macklin, the leasing agent there at the Sawgrass Apartments, to determine whether or not there were any occupants of that complex by the name of Zenaida Gonzalez?
Yes.
You knew at some point during the investigation that Ms. Anthony's car was towed from the Amscot.
Yes.
Did you attempt to locate any surveillance camera footage at the Amscot?
Yes.
Okay. Was any available?
No.
Okay. Do you know why?
They had a bunch of cameras at the Amscot, but apparently they're not operational.
Are they dummies?
For lack of a better word, yes.
During the interview, Miss Anthony mentioned that she had given you a zip drive.
Correct.
Okay. Did you receive such a zip drive?
I did.
And what was on that?
It contained, this is at the night of our interview at her house prior to Universal. It contained photographs of Kaylee Anthony, and it also did contain some cell phone records that she downloaded for, I believe, the month of June and July 2008 that she downloaded from the AT&T, I guess, our AT&T site. She logged in, downloaded, and gave it to me.
Were you there with her when she did that?
Yes.
And what computer was used to make that download?
If I recall correctly, it was a desktop computer.
Where was it located?
In the same room that I conducted my interview with Miss Anthony at the home, the spare bedroom.
What happened at the conclusion of that interview?
The Universal interview?
Yes, sir.
We left the building, went back into the employee parking lot. She went into the car with Sergeant John Allen. She was sitting in the front passenger seat. I was a little bit behind them. By the time I approached them, Sergeant Allen had his laptop, a computer agency laptop out. He was going through photographs in the driver and vehicle information database, also known as DAVID. It brings up driver license photographs of individuals, and he was going through pictures with her.
Pictures of anyone in particular?
Pictures of Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez's, based on the information that Casey had provided. You're able to use a search criteria. In other words, you can put a name in and a date of birth or an age range. So I presume he was doing that based on the information that Miss Anthony had provided to try and identify who Zenaida Gonzalez was.
Okay. If you know, would that include permutations of the name Zenaida Fernandez, Zenaida Gonzalez, and however many variables that could include?
I would presume so. However, I was not in the car with him, so I can't attest to the spelling of the name or what permutations he was using.
All right. Did Miss Anthony attribute any vehicle in particular to this Zenaida Gonzalez?
If memory serves correct, a silver Ford Focus.
Did the Orange County Sheriff's Office receive any tips from citizens regarding Zenaida Gonzalez or the location of Kaylee Marie Anthony?
Over the course of the investigation in the several months that followed, yes, we received over 6,000 tips in total. Several of those had to do with sightings of Kaylee with a Hispanic female. Several tips had to do with Zenaida Gonzalez. So yes, we did.
Okay. Did you ever locate the Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez that Ms. Anthony described to you?
No, I did not.
Did you ever locate or find any evidence that Kaylee Anthony had been with a Hispanic female at any point in time after June 16th of 2008, based on the tips and the investigation into those tips?
No.
Okay. You had mentioned that Ms. Anthony downloaded phone records and gave them to you. Did you collect Ms. Anthony's actual cell phone?
Yes.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor. I'll just have you take a look at the packaging of HQ for identification.
Thank you.
Tell me if you recognize anything on that package.
I recognize the evidence tape as one that we use at the sheriff's office. I recognize the stickers on it as stickers indicating it is evidence for the sheriff's office. Reading the stickers, it says that it is a Nokia cell phone, model 2610, and under owner name Casey Anthony. Under date is 7/16 of 08.
Would that have been the date that you collected it from her?
Yes.
What did you do with it?
Inevitably, we obtained a court order in order to get the historical caller information, text messages from the cell phone. We also downloaded the cell phone information to get her caller ID list, her friends list, names of people that she had programmed into her phone along with telephone numbers.
Who did you give the phone to?
If memory serves correct, I gave it to one of our computer forensic examiners.
Who?
Either Sergeant Kevin Stinger or Detective Sandy Osborne, then Sandy Kahn.
Are those the individuals who would have completed the examination and downloading of information from the phone?
Yes.
Did you also find out who Ms. Anthony's phone carrier was for that cell phone?
Yes.
Who was that?
AT&T, also known as Singular.
Were you able to obtain, either by court order or a subpoena of some sort, cell phone records directly from AT&T?
Yes.
I wanted to announce a stipulation that the party, offer a stipulation that the parties have entered into regarding the cell phone records.
Mr. Bias?
Yes, sir. We have stipulated and have no objections.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I will now read to you this stipulation. The attached cellular telephone records are true and correct copies of the business records of AT&T regarding phone number 407-619-9286, subscriber Casey Anthony. The records includes the bill usage data and live data with cell tower site information. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations.
Your Honor, in light of the stipulation, I would seek to introduce NE, a composite exhibit for identification, into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibit.
Your Honor.
It will be admitted into evidence as states numbered.
Did you collect items from the Anthony home that belonged at some point to Kaylee Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you collect those items from?
I believe it was from Miss Cindy Anthony.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I have states JC, JD, JE, and JF for identification. Let me take a look at each of the packages.
Thank you.
Do the markings on the exterior of the package appear to coincide with your recollection of what you collected from Cindy Anthony as property of Kaylee Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. What were those items that you collected?
I'll read off the package. Item number 1, 4 toothbrushes belonging to Kaylee Anthony. Item number 2, 1 brush belonging to Kaylee Anthony. Item number 3, 1 comb belonging to Kaylee Anthony. Item number 4, 1 thermometer belonging to Kaylee Anthony.
Did you turn those over to a crime scene investigator with the Orange County Sheriff's Office by the name of Christine Narkowitz? Something like that.
Yes, I believe so.
You had talked about Detective Allen looking at the David or the driver's license photographs in his car with Casey Anthony after the conclusion of the interview that we just heard. What type of car was this?
It was a sport utility vehicle. I want to say a Ford Explorer, perhaps.
Okay. Marked, unmarked?
Unmarked.
And where was Ms. Anthony seated when you saw her?
In the front passenger seat.
Did she accompany you all to another location?
Yes.
Where was that?
Back to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Central Operations Center at State Road 50 and John Young.
Okay. Once she got there, after a period of time, was she placed under arrest?
Yes.
For what?
Ultimately, at the time, it was for providing false information to a law enforcement officer, obstructing a investigation, and for child neglect.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no other questions of the witness on this subject at this point.
Cross-examination.
May it please the court. Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I notice when you're asked questions that you turn to the jury to answer them. Do you not?
Yes.
And you're taught to testify that way.
Yes.
And part of your job as a police officer is learning how to speak to juries.
Yes.
And to be persuasive on the stand.
Define persuasive.
By looking them directly as the prosecutor is asking you questions.
A jury is ultimately charged with deciding the facts of the case and guilt or innocence. I'm trying to answer your question, sir.
My question to you, sir, is it's...
Mr. Bias, let him finish answering the question.
Yes.
You may continue.
I feel it appropriate, since this is for the jury's benefit, to look at the jury and acknowledge them in my answers.
But you do not do that during cross-examination, do you, sir?
I'm doing it now.
Right now that I've pointed it out to you, haven't you?
Yes.
Now, you testified to the jury that Zenaida Gonzalez, at this point, and I'm specifically referring to July 16th, is the suspect.
I believe it was Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, according to Miss Anthony, yes.
So she's the suspect and not Miss Anthony.
Correct.
Now, And this is after you've already verified that no Zenaida Gonzalez lives at Sawgrass Apartments.
Correct.
This is after verifying that the child has been missing for 30 days.
Correct.
This is after finding out from George Anthony that the car smells.
I don't recall who told me the car had the odor. We've gone over this, but I knew of an odor on the car. Yes.
This is after finding out there was a foul odor in a car.
An odor from the car, yes.
This is after verifying that Casey Anthony is lying to you about working at Universal Studios.
Yes.
This is about after verifying that Jeffrey Michael Hopkins hasn't worked there since 2002.
Correct.
This is after finding out that no Juliet Lewis ever worked for Universal Studios.
Correct.
This is after finding out that Zenaida Gonzalez never worked for Universal Studios.
Correct.
And despite all of this information, Casey Anthony is not a suspect.
Correct.
Now, I notice you're not looking at the jury anymore. Can you look at them and tell them in the eye that... May I finish the question?
No. Sustain. Next question.
Can you honestly, under oath, Detective Melich, tell this jury that at that point in your investigation, Casey Anthony was not a suspect?
A suspect of what, sir?
Of anything, of any crime.
Well, obviously she admits that she had lied to us about several aspects of this, but she was very vehement in her statement to us in saying the last person she saw this child with was Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
And you didn't suspect Casey Anthony of foul play against Kaylee Anthony at this point?
I didn't know what to take of Casey Anthony. I couldn't understand why the mother of a missing child would go through this extent if we're just trying to help find her child.
Did you understand the question, sir?
Please say it again.
Did you not suspect Casey Anthony at this point of some type of foul play against Kaylee Anthony?
I suspected that Miss Anthony was holding back information still. I confronted her several times in the interview, offered several different scenarios to include one where Kaylee was no longer alive. She denied all of it, and she was adamant that her daughter was with this Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
So the answer to my question is no, you didn't suspect her of foul play against her daughter.
I can't tell you what I felt at the time. Sitting here today, based on all the information, yes, I do suspect that now. But at the time, right after Universal, we had all this information coming to us. We'd already determined that she had lied on several accounts. We still wanted to get more information. We wanted to show her photographs of this Zenaida. If we didn't believe she didn't exist, we wouldn't have showed her photographs.
And this is even after all this information, you still didn't think she was a suspect?
Correct. We had no indication to say foul play aside from her just lying and not telling us where Zenaida lived.
But isn't a true missing persons case investigation akin to a murder investigation, Detective Melich?
It can depend on the circumstances.
But without a body?
It can depend on the circumstances. If you have a missing person and legitimately this person has gone missing, for instance, a 2.5-year-old child, and you get a lot of different stories, it could be because ultimately you're trying to find the truth. So in that respect, in finding the truth, it is. And we've had missing adult cases where a person who is reputable in the community, who has nothing in their life that would suggest that they would just immediately leave their lives. Yes, those are missing person cases where we have to presume maybe something else happened.
So at this point, you're doing a murder investigation?
No, sir.
Okay. And even though... let me ask you, is it your opinion that a missing persons investigation is akin to a murder investigation without a body?
In the general sense, no. It can be, but not in all instances, no.
Now, I'd like to go back to all that you had done up until this point, since we're now in the phase of the Universal incident on July 16th. At this point, you have gone to 4937 Hope Spring Drive.
Yes.
You have, at that point, looked at a statement
Yes.
By Miss Anthony. Now, you didn't collect that statement from Miss Anthony, right?
Correct.
And it is your understanding that the officer who took that statement from Casey actually handcuffed Casey Anthony, didn't she?
These are facts not in evidence, number one. And number two, he has answered this question on the last time he was on stand, and it calls for a hearsay response.
Sustain.
You have quite a bit of information at this point, do you not, sir?
I have information, yes.
And then you go on a trip with Miss Anthony to several locations on the 15th or early morning of the 16th.
Yes.
All of which are not giving you any answers.
Correct.
And you go to a place that is a convalescence home.
Yes.
And that is supposed to be where Zenaida's mother lives.
At one point in time, Zenaida lived with other people, so yes.
Now, Zenaida was supposed to live at that convalescence home.
At the seniors facility, yes.
The 24-year-old girl.
Yes.
Okay. And you later found out that that was across the street from Ricardo Morales' home.
From the street Ricardo lives on, yes.
And then after you do all of these things, you go and meet up with Sergeant Allen.
Yes.
He is your supervisor.
Yes.
And you brief him of all the bizarre events that happened the night before.
What bizarre events are we referring to, sir?
Come on, Detective Melich. You know exactly what I'm referring to. The ones we just finished covering.
I didn't know that that was a seniors-only facility when I met with Sergeant Allen. I also hadn't confirmed. What do you mean by? Repeat the question.
You had briefed him on all of the bizarre events that happened the night before, like coming to a home where a child has been missing for 30 days and not reported, like going to an apartment complex that had been abandoned or no one had lived in for several weeks or months, like not being able to get any answers. All of those facts.
That's incorrect, sir. I had not been to Sawgrass yet. I went with Miss Anthony when she showed me the apartment, but I had not yet met with the apartment manager of Sawgrass and determined for myself that it was an empty apartment.
But you had sent other officers to go do that. In fact, Rendon Fletcher was ordered to go do that, was he not?
I don't recall sending any officers to go there. I know they did. I don't recall it being in my direction.
In fact, you know that this was the second trip that was taken to Sawgrass Apartments. One first by Adriana Acevedo and Rendon Fletcher, the second one done by you.
Yes, I recall it was the second trip.
All right, so you've got all this stuff done. You brief your sergeant as to what's going on, right?
Yes.
And your next step is to go to Universal Studios.
No. When I briefed my sergeant, again, I had not gone to Sawgrass, I had not been to the seniors-only facility, and I had not been to Universal. So when I briefed Sergeant Allen, I had yet to do these things.
Okay, so your next step was to?
The next place I went was to the Sawgrass Apartments.
Then you got all this information, which means that apartment's been empty for months.
According to Sawgrass, it had been.
No Zenaida Gonzalez.
Correct.
And then?
Incorrect. There was a guest card filled out with a Zenaida Gonzalez on it that we would later follow up on.
But no Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
No, the guest card didn't say Fernandez.
Right. And after all of this goes on, you talk to Sergeant Allen again.
Yes, in an effort to see if he can get someone to bring Miss Anthony to Universal.
And you're briefing him of all of these stories told to you by Casey Anthony.
Yes.
And you can't put your finger on why you're hearing all of these stories.
Correct. I had no idea why.
It's odd.
Is that a question?
Yes, sir. That's a question.
Yeah, it was.
And at this point, you go to Universal Studios and you meet with Leonard Tortora.
If you're implying that I met with him before or after I talked to Sergeant Allen, I don't recall talking to Sergeant Allen until after I had been to Universal. From our meeting in the morning to the time I called him after we had met with, or after I'd met with Mr. Tortora.
Now, at this point, you're with Leonard Tatura, and you find out Casey Anthony doesn't work there.
Correct.
And you find out all these people don't work there.
Yes.
And you're finding out that these are just more stories.
Yes.
Now, the night before, you had inquired about Miss Anthony's mental health status with Miss Anthony, did you not?
I asked if she had ever been to Lakeside or had any thoughts of suicide. So in that respect, I had.
Okay. Now, you then, after knowing that she doesn't work there, you call her.
You're implying that yes.
My question to you, sir. My question is, after knowing that she doesn't work there, you call her.
After meeting with Mr. Tutora, and Mr. Tutora saying she had not worked for Universal for several years, yes, I did call her.
Okay. Now, after you call her, you put her on speakerphone.
Yes.
And this is so Leonard Tatura can hear.
Yes.
And she gives you more information.
She confirms information she had already given me.
She gives you an extension.
Yes.
From her office.
Yes.
Her office where her other phone is at.
Where she lost her other phone, I believe. Yes.
Or she filled out a report with security because she lost the phone number that contains the information of all these people you need to get a hold of.
I don't recall her saying that she was at her office when she filled out the report, but she did claim she filled out a report, I believe, for Universal.
With loss prevention.
For Universal.
Okay. And now, you know, because Tatura tells you that's not a real phone extension.
Correct.
And you know that's not true. So then you have her come to Universal, correct?
Correct.
And this is after briefing, of course, Sergeant Allen, right?
Again, you're saying briefing. I know I talked to Sergeant Allen over the phone and asked if he could pick Miss Anthony up.
And you didn't tell him all that you had found out right then and there.
Although I can't recall what I told him on the phone, I believe I did. I would say I did. If he's my supervisor and I'm asking him to pick up Miss Anthony, I presume I would have told him what I'd found so far.
Right. He's not your taxi service. He's your supervisor. You're going to tell him what's going on, right?
Correct.
Okay. So he knows what's going on. You know what's going on. There's about to be this ruse at Universal, is there not?
What ruse?
Pretending or going to allow Casey to continue telling stories.
Miss Anthony told us she worked at Universal Studios. She was very persuasive. She was very, as a matter of fact, when she was telling us about her employment, what she did and her office and her phone and everything else. Even at this time, I couldn't imagine that this was a ruse, to use your word. I wanted to find out where she would take us. If she said she had an office, maybe the computer system was wrong. I don't know. Maybe she worked as a subcontractor for Universal off-site. I don't know. I wanted to see where she would take us. She agreed to take us to her office. So obviously, I want to see where she's going to take us.
She didn't take you off-site, did she?
No.
She took you to Universal?
Yes.
Okay. And you knew all of this is not true?
According to Mr. Tutor, yes. She did not work at Universal Studios, and yet she directed Sergeant Allen to go to the employee parking lot of Universal, and she walked up to the employee entrance of Universal and attempted to get in, even then claiming she was an employee. I couldn't understand why she would do that.
Just beyond you.
Fair to say, we're looking for a missing 2.5-year-old. I can't understand why, if she's coming up to this security gate with 2 officers in tow, another detective standing there with security manager in front of all these people, I can't imagine what would inspire her to lie at this point. If she's at the gate, there's got to be a reason for it. There has to be an explanation for it. I can't figure it out, but she led us there.
Right, and these are things beyond your comprehension, aren't they, Detective Melich?
Well, at the time, I sat back, and of course we watched and wanted to see where her exchange was at the security gate.
And she had no ID number?
I don't know about the number. She had no ID with her.
She had no one that she could call to come to the gate and say, hey, yeah, she works here?
I can't answer that question.
That didn't happen in your presence?
I don't recall her asking or being asked if she had someone she can call.
Now, you get to the gate and you walk into Universal. Can I have HG? You walk through the gate, right?
Yes.
And as you're walking through the gate, and you said she's very persuasive. Sounds like she believes this, right?
Perhaps convincing is a better word, but yeah, she's very convincing, as if she knows what she's doing, knows where she's going.
And in fact, you said she was walking with purpose.
Yes.
And, Your Honor, can I publish HG that's been admitted into evidence for the jury?
What's the exhibit number?
HG?
No. It's the evidence number. Madam Clerk.
62.
Is it 62, Madam Clerk? You may publish 62.
Can everyone see that? Okay. All right. So as you walk in, this is where you begin, correct?
I was at the security gate when they walked up, and as I indicated before, I believe when we left, can I mark on the screen?
Yes, go ahead.
When we left, I recall Sergeant Allen being parked somewhere here in the blue. But yes, we did walk through this security gate.
And right there, where you just marked, she's walking with purpose.
Walking with purpose is while she's in the studio. It's the general sense of overall, yeah, she walked with purpose. She didn't hesitate any time.
You testified she was leading you.
Yes, she led us to her office. We obviously didn't know where it was.
And then you make a right.
Inside the gate, we make a right. We go down a path or a walkway.
And she's walking again, leading you. And the two of you are having small talk.
Yes.
And she's telling you that she's going to take you to her office.
I can't recall what the conversation was, but she was there to lead us to her office.
Does she have a nameplate that says Casey Anthony on her desk? Did she say anything about that?
I don't recall.
Did she say she had a computer on her desk?
I don't recall.
Any photographs of her family?
I don't recall asking any of that.
And she's walking down, what's that, about 50 yards before you make a left?
Give or take. I can't approximate distances.
And when you're making that left, does she tell you, we've got to turn left here?
Once again, I don't recall the conversation. I recall she led us to that building. I can't recall the specifics or the conversation I had with her as we walked.
And then you walk maybe another 100 yards before you get in the building.
A fair estimate.
Okay. And then she turns to the left or she turns to the right?
At what point, sir?
When you get in the building.
She turns left.
Okay. And she looked like she knew where she was going.
Yes.
Okay. And she just kept going.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden stops.
Yes.
And that's when reality sinks in.
That's when she told us she didn't work here.
Right. Now, is it at this point in time, detective, that you realize you might be dealing with something just a little bit more than just a kid who's lying to you?
No, sir. Throughout the morning, I was already noticing that there was something very peculiar about the story. She was saying that she went to certain locations. I was verifying these locations and finding out it just didn't seem as if, or seem what she was telling me was right. So it was, the whole morning was peculiar, but that particular moment just added to it. Why would she lead us down this hallway? I didn't understand. I didn't have an answer to that, and that's why we wanted to ask Miss Anthony, again, explain to us what happened. Explain to us why we're here.
Now, as a police officer, many times you deal with people who have problems with drug abuse.
Yes.
You also deal with a lot of people who have mental health issues, do you not?
Yes.
And then you also have people that don't fall into either one of them, those categories.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to make a call as you're investigating cases, even though you're not, based on your own experience and based on your own observations, as to which category some of these people might fall into and how to deal with them, do you not?
It's a very general question. I can't say that I lump people in a category at any particular time. Yes, there are categories, but I don't, if you're asking me if I lumped Miss Anthony into a category at that time, no.
Okay, let me ask you this. You go into a room now, right? A conference room?
A small room, yes.
Yes, okay. You go into a small room, and I want to ask you this hypothetical. As you're about to sit down, if Casey had told you, don't sit there, Zanny the nanny is sitting there, what would you have done?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is speculative and irrelevant.
I said it's a hypothetical, Judge.
Sustain.
Are there psychologists or psychiatrists that you have ever consulted with in investigations?
Object. Irrelevant.
Sustain.
Judge, may we approach?
May. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the time is now 12 noon. We're going to go to lunch. I'm going to ask you not to discuss this case among yourselves, and please abide by all of my other admonitions. Any additional instructions by the state or the defense? Okay, members of the jury, enjoy your lunch. We'll be back at 1:30.